Okay.
Alright, welcome guys to week 7 anatomy class. Alright, so as we have already spoken and discussed previously, it's about the length or the size. You kind of like, you want to get the location, the scale proper. So the bone system or the bone structure is extremely essential, right? So normally the bone is where to study the skeletal, right, is where it's going to give you a rough idea of how the structure is going to start off with, right? And it depends on what kind of character that you're trying to do and from where it's the character is forming from, right? So in a nutshell, the structures of a character is going to be almost similar, right? For woman and male, it's going to be almost similar. For woman means woman, for male means male, right? So female and male will have almost the same basic structure first, and then eventually the size of your rib cage and all that will be expanding depending on which zonal area you're from. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. You can alter that, but in a nutshell, it's to give you the landmarks for you to make sure all the masses, which is your muscles, is going to kind of like wrap on top of the bones. Make sense? Yeah. And then form the mass for the body. Yep. So most of us will get kind of like, why is it not working properly? Because the scale is not right. You'll have a super huge hand and so on and so forth. You know, it can be stylized and so on. You can have elongated hand, very thin hand. You can have a big arm, right? This is arm, right? The lower arm is huge, and then it kind of like blends in with the wrist. You can't see the wrist like separately coming in. That's fine. You can always you know kind of like adjust it accordingly. But before you adjust, you need to know how it kind of like blends together so it's believable. Make sense? Yeah. So that's the whole goal. Even if you study any of these characters that you can see here, all right, this is a fantasy book that I've already shared with you guys, right? It's a good book, all right. It gives you an indication of how, or it gives you a reference point of how this whole stylized character has been created, right? And it's believable. It makes sense. Okay, so that's what we want to do with anatomy, because with anatomy, if you're going to go like fine artists and so on and so forth, then it's good, but it's going to be too taxing. So I would like to show you guys with all this references that is easier for you to relate to, right? So at the end of the day, your characters need to be relatable with the realistic or existing creatures outside there. Make sense? And it's believable. Got it?
Yeah.
Right? So these are the key things that we want to kind of like keep that in mind most of the time. Of course, bone structures for kids, babies, or infants, and so on and so forth, it's going to be slightly different because of the size. Alright? For teenagers, it's going to be a little bit more smaller, and so on and so forth. So all that will have its own scales, but then again, each and every, no matter how much you scale it down or scale it up, all right, how tall is it going to be, how fat is going to be, the bone structure is going to be the landmark for where and how is it going to hold, right? So as you can see here, if I put a bone from here to here, I'm just going to undo this, right? So you all understand this, huh? First, before I go ahead. Yes, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the size from here, the bone, to the lower arm, so whereby it starts from the mid here up to the wrist, right? Same size. Okay. Then it comes to the rib cage, and you got pelvis, and then you've got from the pelvis here starts off to the knees and knees up to your ankle, right? So these two will be almost similar size as well, similar to the hands. Got it? And it's very symmetrical, right? It becomes asymmetrical when there is any awkward alteration or probably abnormal you know form is happening and so on and so forth because of its origin. Then of course there will be a little adjustments, or the bone is going to be distorted a little bit, but in a norm it will be similar and symmetrical, right? So Ken,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so make sure before you do anything further, so like we said, I just covered how to mask. You guys are familiar with mask already. So once you have already done this masking, say you want to scale this down, or you kind of like you want to scale this in proper. One is you can go for uniformal scale like that and move it. Make sure the pivot point is in proper area. Got it? You can use
Mm-hmm.
uniformal scale, but of course when you're using uniformal scale like this, it's gonna offset a little bit. So what you can do is you can pull it over and adjust it accordingly, right? So there's few things that you want to do is depending on how and where are you positioning your gizmos. Get it? So like I like to do the gizmo position in the flow direction. Make sense? That's why I did
Yeah.
the unlock, and I've rotated accordingly so that it kind of like it gives me an indication of the bones direction it's going to go, right? And then I lock it so that it's easier when I do the rotation. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So once you have rotated this, then of course you can always do your cleaning up and adjustment and so on and so forth. See, in ZBrush, right, it is not a rigging system. It doesn't have rigging system, right? Probably in the future, yes, maybe 2020, if I'm not mistaken, they have a little bit, perhaps. But then again, it is not a rigging system, so it doesn't contain this rigging system. You can still do it, but you still have to go ahead and paint with it, so which means you are adjusting the mass accordingly, right? And you can't really animate in ZBrush yet, right? So it's more on sculpting tool, so you can position it in proper and you can adjust it accordingly. Okay, can I?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So once you have done this, then what you have to do is say, for instance, up to here, what you can do is, one is to be safe, you go to polygroups, you can polygroup this guy, right? Group visible or group mask. The moment you group mask, see what happens. Two different colors. Can see,
Yeah.
right? So I can do alternate W, Control W. See that color changes. So Control W is everything, right? It gives you a color for every single thing. At the moment, the mass is super high poly because we are using Dynamesh it to extremely high and so on and so forth. So here, just to give you an indication of how it looks, so if you were to kind of like want to have certain components for certain mask areas to be polygrouped or different group, then what you can do is you can just mask the components or the selected areas and apply group mask. Correct? So with this now, what you can do is to show you. All right. So say I'm going to go to W. I'm hitting back at W. See, if I want to select certain components, what I can do is I can then click on it, say choose and select, or use Control Shift and click on the groups to hide certain components. By holding Control and Shift together, clicking this is to isolate. See that? You click once, right? You click on any of these colored areas or polygrouped areas, different colors. You click once, it will hide the unselected areas or different polygroup areas. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So if I want it back or if I want to invert it, I just have to tap on this selected component and it will then shift to, or it will isolate the previous visible polygroup and then shift it to the hidden one. Make sense? So polygroup is extremely useful in the future. So we'll dive deeper to polygroups later on. Okay? Even further. So for now, you can do this as well. Alright? Ken? Yes, no? Everyone understand what is polygroup is in a nutshell? Yeah? Hello?
Something like that.
So you have to do a little trial. Yeah? If you want to get back everything, just click on everywhere or an empty space, it will just pop up. Alright? So this is polygroup. Okay. So polygroup will dive deeper into that. But then again, the idea is to get certain components, you can mask it or you can polygroup it. Once you polygroup it later on, when you're painting and so on and so forth, you can shift F, right, to see the colors, different colors. Yeah, you can have the head separated, you can have the body separated, you can have the pelvis area separated, and so on and so forth. You can kind of assign colors for certain selections, so it becomes a selection zone and unhide certain components and so on and so forth. Make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that is that. So I'm just going to go back to the selection areas, press W again, rotate and see where it falls. Very important, where it falls. Alright. So if the gizmo is correct, then you can elongate like that a little bit. Right? Adjust it and scale it down. See? So it kind of like it all fits in together. Can I? Right?
Yeah.
So once you have done this, definitely you have to go to, go back to your draw and then you kind of like unmask it. And this is where you have to start pulling. Or what you can do is you can take this and you can actually do another duplicate, right? You can unhide it, make it solo, and this is where you can delete, right? You can delete, or practically you can do the polygroup and delete components, right? How do you do that? Is go to polygroup again, right? You can group from masking, okay? So now to that, see that too is separate. So if I hide this, Control Shift, see that? I can delete hidden. Now how do I do that? Go to Geometry, modify Topology, delete hidden, push. So now under the subtool, no matter how much you unhide others, it's no more. Can?
Yeah.
Was it too fast? Yes, no? Okay? All okay, the pacing is correct, Okay, If no, please ask the question. Please stop me if I'm going really really fast. Correct? So play around with polygroup. So that's the power of polygroup. That is one of the powers of polygroup and the uses of the usefulness of polygroup. Of course, polygroup is also good for say for instance you want to do the borders, right, for your components to create UVs and all that. It will be also useful. That one will come later. So with this now if you see, if I on the other guy, if I off this solo and I on the previous component or this object or subtool, the origin, right, I'm going to hide this. Now what you can do is you can also go for polygroup again. You can from masking, right, so it's all separate. Now just now what we did was deleted the hands, and for now what you can do is you can delete this, delete the body for this, right. Go back to geometry and go to modify topology, and this is where you are deleting the hidden, right. So once this is deleted under subtool, now you have the hand separated, the body separated from one another. Can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So with that, it's easier. So what you can do is you can also from here for polygroup example, let me just a minute before I do my z mesh and all that. So say you want to separate these two apart, right? Or you want to isolate certain area. Okay, see, it's symmetry. That's why it's not isolating. So I'm going to off symmetry for now, and I'm going to isolate only one of the components. Alright, say you just want to focus on one guy, you don't want to have, you know, having issues by having two hands which is far apart, then the symmetry or the drawing is going to be wrong and so on and so forth. So what you can do is you isolate the, the left hand side normally. Remember, isolate left hand side so that you can work on this component or this mesh. You work with this and then you mirror it. So normally how it mirrors is how it works in here. Okay, you can work both ways, but normally if it's really fast and you want to just mirror it from the geometry, right here, mirror and well, it has to be from left to right, left to right, left to right. Okay, so what you can do is from here you can delete hidden, and now even if I go and hide everything, nothing happens. Right, it's gone. Can? So you see
Yeah.
in subtool here, it is now just one. Okay, and you can save this as a tool as well. If just the hand, if you complete a hand, you can save this or you can export this as a tool, so which means as a OBJ format. So next time when you have all this set that is broken down like a library set, you have the arm, you have the fingers and so on and so forth, it's all different component or OBJs. You can just save it in a file, right? You can export from the subtool, whichever that you have highlighted. Yeah, it will save this as an OBJ. Later on you just have to import and bring it in so that it will just fall under the subtools and you have like a Lego piece. Okay,
Yeah.
right? So in that manner it's easy. as well, depending on which workflow that you are comfortable with and can bring out the best out of it. Yeah, pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
So how do you isolate it?
Control Shift, see this? So we do Control Shift. When you drag and drop like that, it will become green color. See that?
Okay.
So green color, any highlight, anything that falls under this green area, right? Selection area, the green highlighted one, it will only isolate or make visible on that particular region. You know what I mean? So if you want to, view back again everything, you just have to do it outside. Done. Okay? You do once, click once, like mask, click or tap once, it will invert selection. See? That. Or you tap on that particular selected what they call mesh, and it will do the inversion. If you want to have everything visible, tap once on an empty space and it will give you a full visible object. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this will come handy. Alright, another thing that you always notice, you will see this is backface culling. That's why it's not double-sided. So that one can be fixed eventually, but we'll go there and we'll look at it later. But you notice this area, it's a bit raggedy because it was not cleaned up properly, and as we cut, this is the issues that we'll face. Okay, this is common. So what you can do with this is you can go to deformation and you can polish crisp edges and so on and so forth. That's why all these settings or all these other what they call adjustments or movements of objects and so on and so forth, you always do it in a low um, say low poly meshes, so that's easier and it's kind of like positioning, and as well as to clean up the surrounding meshes and so on and so forth, because whenever you're doing a polish, right, see that it cleans up, but as well as it smoothens or it loses the information of your sculpted surface. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right, so polish, it will polish, see that it kind of like it's no more, and you can just drag this to polish some more. See that you can go by features, it's gone, right, and you can do that as well. Crisp edges is practically to retain the sharpness or the raggedness that you already have. All right, and you can also relax it and so on and so forth. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
right, cool. So with that now, you guys understand how to dissect and make like a Lego piece. You finish one from, if you have a full blown character that has been sort of merged together, and you want to do separate components separately, this is how you do it. Right, so then you can go ahead and adjust your, or you can just focus on this guy, press X, now you see it still moves on here, but what you can do is you can go to transform and change the pivot. See that? Center, this is center pivot. Alright, so this is set pivot point, you can set a pivot point and so on and so forth. See that? So once you have already set, okay, it will have a better symmetry. Make sense?
Transformation.
Under transformation, you can change. These are the pivots that you are adjusting. So clear pivot point. This is clear, which means it will read this as a mesh, right? And then it will recalculate or recalibrate your center point based on the mesh selected. Okay, so set pivot point is practically you are doing the set, which means you are stating, hey, this is the center of the object, and from here you do the symmetry. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So you can just click on this and see how it works. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. So here you can also do use possible symmetry. So when I use possible symmetry is practically using the poses, or you have altered the posture and then you are doing it's reading back again on the new posture of the mesh, and you can start doing your sculpting, or you will recalibrate your symmetry for this. Can I?
Yeah.
So once that is done, now you can just focus on this dude. Easy, right? Better, right? So you don't get confused. Every time when you're doing say if you're working on a sculpt, right? So sometimes you'll get overwhelmed when you're looking at too many information in one go. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? There's too many things, too many stuff that is going on, and it would not give you a good end result because you don't know which one to solve, and you feel like it's just choking. So my advice is once you have already broken down the pieces, right, macro or micro sections, then your life will be easier whenever you are adjusting certain components to ensure it suits your concept. Okay, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how we do separation and break down our sculpting components into like a modular piece, so we can go ahead and adjust things accordingly. Yep, without overwhelming ourselves. Here you can just use a move tool. Sometimes if the symmetry is not working, just off the symmetry. Make the by holding S, you can make the draw size slightly bigger, and you can adjust it here. Okay.
Yeah.
So once this is done, you're kind of like happy. Right? Are you happy? Okay, make sure you're happy. Yeah. So once you're happy with this result that you're getting, find like, oh, okay, it's not too, you know, flat. So you just have to make sure that, you know, all these areas is properly adjusted. Like for instance, just do it here. Okay. Okay. Tap on the mask area to make it soft. Blend it. Tap inside, inside the mask, so it kind of like soften these selections. Then you can move this again. The pivot or the gizmo may run off, so you have to unlock it, or holding alt you can just drag this over and recalibrate depending where you want to put it. See, like fingers and all that, it's going to be a little taxing, yeah? But that's fine, you can still do it, nothing is impossible. And lock it now, you can rotate it, bring it down a little bit. See that? So you have that mass working properly. See that? Now it makes sense? This now was flat,
Yeah.
right? So once you finish this, of course, undo it, or then unmask it, and you go ahead and adjust. Say for instance, I use a clay brush or standard brush and so on and so forth. You can add the form. You can see? You can see some areas that it needs to be z-upped. Hand will have its own contour, right? So this whole thumb will have this big loop, right? Muscle that is going to be flexy and a little bubbly, yeah. And of course, the mid area is going to be quite empty, right? And you'll have a mass around here. Normally, it's a little thicker, yeah. And it folds like that. So now you have a hand. Right? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Once you already have that, okay, that's cool. You can do a little pinch to do a little landmark. Pinch it over here, perhaps, to give that nice cut. Right? And you can do like that. Soften it, not too sharp. Soften it, just to keep. Oh, okay. When it kind of like do a cupping and so on, it gives you a reasonably believable, you know, grips and so on and so forth. Okay. For all these bends, you can use either dam standard and so on and so forth to adjust it. So maybe this one is a little longer, so you can adjust it. See, we are not perfect humans straight away to get everything perfect. It takes time, right? That's because we're doing something, you know, in artistic manner and so on and so forth, right? So it's we're recreating stuff and so on. So it's not going to be super perfect unless you're doing for realistic projects and so on. But here it's more like you make sure that we get the ideas behind it or the structure in proper. Make sense what I'm trying to say? So it's believable. And you can utilize this when you're doing your character design. See that? Now the hand is much more believable and it has a mass and it folds better. So when I grip something, it feels more like, oh, okay, more naturally, you know, created and so on. See, like for instance, now I feel it's kind of like really, really, far apart and so on and so forth. Or it kind of like the distance between the pointing finger to the thumb is a bit too far apart. So what I can do is I can do that and drag it over closer and adjust it. You can also rotate it to a certain degree. So when it grips, it goes like, oh, okay, that's cool. I can have this nice little grip. Okay, so once I finish this, again, I will go back and do a little adjustment. certain components like here. If you want it to go inwards, so you can just push it up there now. Right? So the hand is now more believable and it makes sense. Okay? Hello, guys.
Yeah.
So this is what you need to do with your hand. At the moment, most of your hands are extremely flat. Yeah? When it's too flat, you don't see this. If you put your hands together, or if you look at if you study your own hands, right? So when you study your own hands, see how it kind of like, bulges out for the thumb area, right? Something like that, right? And then you'll see from the other side, so which is from your pinky finger, right? See how it kind of like, bulge out around here a little bit, correct? And it forms this little empty mass around here. Just skin is there to wrap it, but normally not much of your muscles or fats that is going to form in the center of your hand. So when you're doing gripping and so on, there is room for flexing. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the key things that you want to study with anatomy to make sure everything blends in together and makes sense. Right? Say you are happy with this adjustment and so on and so forth. Now, once you're done, right, any questions before I move forward?
I
Guys,
don't think so.
you okay? The others? Very quiet. Okay? All okay, huh? Right, cool. So, say once you're happy with this and you're good to go, what you can do is now just go to geometry, right? Just mirror, go to modify topology, mirror and well, right? It's not going to happen straight away because your pivot is here. You have changed the pivot, right? So sometimes it's just going to go like puff. The pivot here because we changed the transform. See? So it's going to go like when I do this mirror and well, it is forming from here, right in the middle. Got it? So in order for you to make sure it is not right there, or it's kind of like projecting from this center, it's not picking up this center point. So you can do is you can unlock this gizmo and reset it, hit home, and you can pull it over wherever it is supposed to be and lock it. Now you can mirror. Even if you mirror this, oops, it is still not doing well. That's fine. One is because it is still has we have already reset the symmetries and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's try here again. It is still not working, but that's fine. What you can do is, right, another way, if you find this kind of issues, very simple, you can go back here on this guy, okay, doing, oh, make sure this is on, select this, reset, drag it over, pull it where it's supposed to go in, this, drag it and place it like a Lego piece. Now push. I'm going to show you guys a little technique of how you want to adjust this to and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm just going to rotate it so that it kind of like merge, it kind of sockets well. Okay, focus. Right. So I'm going to merge this with this dude. So what I can do is I can go to merge down. Say OK. Now this two is merged back together. See that? Okay. Once it's merged, what you can do is go to geometry, modify topology, mirror and mirror. Supposedly it will, I think best is to do this. Oops. No. Okay, my bad. See what happened was when I did this, it kind of like the pivot has gone nuts. So what I can do, I can always hide this. Okay. Once you have already merged, it is gone, huh? Guys.
Yeah.
Right. So what you can do is you can hide this. Right. I'm gonna off my perspective. I'm gonna click on hide. I want only half. Delete hidden to be clean line to be safe. Geometry. Delete hidden and then update. Reset. Home. Lock it. And now mirror and mirror. Supposedly it should create a what? How is it not happening? That's X. I'm gonna go to transform. Close. Transform. You gotta do a couple of adjustment, right? With this guy, try. Still, if this is happening again, what you can do is go to transform or Z plugin. You transform. This one you have to adjust now. Yeah. You can off this local symmetry. You can set pivot, clear it. Okay. See, it's going to center. And probably you can try this and see. See, it reads from here. I'm going to reset it. Right. Now it is projecting really far apart. Right? This is because can you see where the two dots are? Right? It reads that. So go back here. You can set back again. Let's go back and see. Try this. Right? See that? It's too near. So you go back and you have to adjust this again and again and again. Yeah? Okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
If it's not working, that's fine. It's too far apart. Even if I'm here and see, it's too far apart. So if it's not working, if it's kind of going really far apart, what you can do is you can go to zip plugin and you go and look for subtool master, right? And you can do a mirror here. Okay. If you mirror this, say OK, and you can merge this to center as well. Push. Similar to what or how we can move the objects and so on and so forth. Okay. What is happening? Hang on. going to delete this. Alright. See, when we did all this amends and so on and so forth, what happened was it has changed the location. So which means it, when I on this, it kind of like move the position of the object, right? So what you can do is you can first Dynamesh this. See, Dynamesh is on. I'm going to come back here, transform, and Possible Symmetry. You wanna use this. Supposed to be as bigger. Why is this? Okay, reset. Right, I've already moved the object to the wrong place. Off. Sorry guys, I've already moved because we had merged and so on and so forth. We kind of like move things away from the origin a little bit. Okay, adjust this. Supposedly everything should work fine. Right, now I'm gonna just unlock this and reset this, bring it home and drag it over and press X now and reset. What? It's not working. Alright, let's go here. What is local symmetry is on? Local symmetry is on. Transform. Let's try. Normally, once you have already done this, it should work. But if it's not, then we'll try some other stuff. Right? Oh. Okay, anyways, so you can do this way. Normally, transform again. This needs to be in proper, yeah. And when I set pivot here, it's supposed to set, but unfortunately it has moved the objects away from where it's supposed to be. Okay, but that's fine. You can go back here. Let me try this again. It's not working because this two is not properly combined. You have to Dynamesh and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll come back to this and I will explain even further. So maybe here, if this is not working, I will try this. Okay, this is separate, so what I can do is I'm going to off this, bring it to center, or drag it here, reset right here, done. I'm going to off my, this is another way, yeah. I'm going to drag it right to the center. Okay, now I can merge these two. Merge down. Okay, done. Right? Can reset this. See if there is, if it's going crazy, you can always reset this. Right? And you can go back here and you can reset to the center and push. Everything is right in the middle. Okay, position where it's supposed to be, and you're good to go. See that?
Yeah.
Alright. So this is couple of ways of doing if you cannot do it in the easy method like how we did before. So you can do this as well. Alright. All I'm saying is there's multiple way of doing things. So make sure the symmetry is off when you're moving right to left especially. Right. So yep, you're good to go now. See that? Push down. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what you have to do is go back to geometry, right? And I am going to do a Dynamesh. Before I do Dynamesh, I'll do a Z-remesher for this guy. Okay, because it's quite high polyethylene. And the processes go, as you all know, Z-remesh. After that, you have to do Dynamesh, and Dynamesh only works if you have done any alteration on your mesh, and it kind of like blends in together so that you don't have all those unnecessary seams, right? That is obvious and making it look awkward. Okay, okay. So that's that for mixing and kind of like breaking down the components to different components and merging it together as one piece. Right? Sometimes you may have issues with the transformation because of the center pivots and so on and so forth. If it's going haywire, this is another method you can just do under transform under Z plugin. Go to once this guy is done, then I can show you. Under Z plugin, you can go to subtool manager and you can do a mirror. So when it does a mirror, it will create a separate subtool and you can just move the objects closer and you can merge things together. Okay, you're going to get this kind of artifacts, like for instance, this kind of uh, cuttings which is not combined properly and so on and so forth. So this is because we did not bring the mesh closer enough. So it kind of like it tries to marry things, but it did not work much. So what you can do is you can come here and do a little clay brushing or with simple do that mask outside. Alright, just do a little alteration and it will start to diminish or reduce the amount of these creases, or it kind of like erases this off. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So just do once any alteration and any component, and you're good to go. Just after this is just using smooth brush and then smoothen the mid areas or the creases or the cut lines. Okay,
Yeah.
now you see when it's all z-remeshed, your symmetry is back to normal. Okay, so can I guys, you z-remesh and then you do a Dynamesh and you can get back your symmetries again in proper. See that? Any questions?
I don't think so.
For now, you all are good. Yeah?
Yeah.
And go ahead and adjust accordingly. So normally, a lot of you may do this, right? So that's fine, okay? But to be proper, what you should do is you should go with the flow. The reason why you go with the flow is because of your muscle structure and kind of like mesh distribution to the whole component. So you can see how it kind of like it flows in the proper direction, and it will then give you a nice texture. Make sense?
Yes.
Right. So these are the areas that you want to work with later on after you've already done your landmarking processes and so on and so forth. Am I making sense? Yeah? Can I?
Okay.
So once you have done that, then it's a lot more easier for you to then go ahead and adjust your or adding on details to your character. Yeah? So to that to get a nice nostril breakdown. And the sentence is actually not bad when you have it like that. Because some of you know of us may have a very obvious cut right in the middle here for some reason. Yeah. So it depends on what who do you study and what do you intend to do. Okay? Can I?
Yeah.
So again, you can use the standard brushes. Standard brushes is not bad, huh? So do not think standard brushes is useless because it has a lot of usefulness whenever you're doing, this kind of roundish components and so on and so forth, or and surface that you intend to have. Okay, like the nose holes, like the eyes, and so on. Okay, like you want to inflate certain components, like here, you can use the standard brush, not just clay build up all the way. Can I? So this one will be very useful. See, it inflates for you. Okay, so that's that for mesh adjustments and so on and so forth. Okay, right? So we'll take about 5 minutes break. When we come back, we are going to do more on polypaint. So when you're adjusting, you want to get this form first, right? Just to give you a rough idea of what I meant by skeletal. Again, a recap, right? See, I have a, I'm going to off this. I'm going to go for mask pen. See this to here, right? And this to here. You know how we start drawing, right? Yes, no? So this size and this size will be same because the bone length is the same. Got it?
Yep.
Most of you, your model doesn't have this kind of flow. It is flat here, right? You will need to have a little push. You will have a little mass around the, the butt area as well as the chest. Got it? Because this is rib cage, and whatever that is holding it, it kind of like, depending on how muscular the character is, so sometimes will have a very strong, shoulders and so on and so forth. But you know, um, some characters will be lean. Even so, the what they call the it's not the rib cage. It's this wing, right? That is holding it will kind of like pop up out a little bit, depending on which direction the hands are moving. Can see? We'll have this right, correct? The shoulder blade, yeah. When you have the shoulder blade, so when it's moving, the moment the hands, or if you're hunching and so on and so forth, you will bring the shoulder this way around. Can see? Yes, no? And you will start to hunch. And when he rests and if this drops, it kind of tries to balance a little science. Can see,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm from the front or off my perspective, right from the side, you see, end of the day, it's about stabilizing the character to its center pivot. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So here, got it? So this part, I'm going to centralize it. So you don't want the character to just drop or fall front or fall behind. You want some sort of centralize the character. How do you do that? Is where you adjust your mass, as well as your bone, uh, what they call rotation and so on and so forth. Right? Your structure, your skeletal structure. Okay? So that's what is missing from your drawings or from your characters. So what you're going to do is I'm going to just save this first. 7. Bam. Right. So we have covered here how to break down the components to like a modular piece and then patching it together, stitching it together by using either the Z plugin under the Z plugin subtool manager or subtool master. Click on the mirror and it will just mirror it for you. It will create a separate subtool and you can just combine it and merge it together by merging down or selecting the subtool from up to bottom and so on and so forth, and it will then give you the center pivot back again. Right, I've already covered the transformation, so this is where you adjust your pivot points or where it's going to project or it's going to read the center from, and it then project to its axis that is intended to, right? And yep, we've got other options as well. You can go to geometry, you can do with modify topology, mirror and well. But mirror and well, sometimes if it's very iffy, what you can do is you can always go back to or lean forward to subtool master. Alright, so a couple of options I've also covered. Polygroup. Polygroup will take a little time for you to understand polygroup even further, but in a nutshell, polygroup is also to separate certain components, right, like Lego pieces as well, if it's all merged, and then you can hide and unhide and focus on certain polygroups and work on from there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So what I want you all to do is adjust your mesh once when you can do a little what they call recap of what I've already covered here. Alright, test it out on your model. Please save it as test, alright, so that you do not just do on or destroy your origin just yet. Adjust it and see how it goes. Right, so we'll take about 5 minutes break. Is that fine?
Yeah.
Right, can I? So I will stop recording now and I'll see you for part 2.